Poor little nugget, she got overheated. Before we get started, I just finished and I loved it so much. It's not gonna be a part of this, but I just needed to showcase the reason I'm like smiling is purely off of this story alone. I didn't think I was gonna like Morgan's story, and Rebecca did what Rebecca does. Yes, 100%. Yep. Hi, welcome to Gnomes and Novels. My name is Dylinda, your mood reading bestie, and we are going to do a June wrap-up. It's my first wrap-up of many, hopefully. I am not truly aware of how many books I read, as well as DNFs. So apparently I read 22 books last month. I want to preface this by saying it is not a race, it is not a competition for how many books you are able to read, how many books I'm able to read, how many books your neighbor is able to read. If you're able to read a sentence, a paragraph, a page, a chapter, one book, that is better than not having read anything. So no matter the number, and I think that's why I set my yearly goal pretty low. I could probably hike it up, but I set it pretty low just because it is just a number, and I actually do like the little fireworks that Goodreads does once you've hit that goal. But as far as like the actual number of books I set out to read a year, it's not a true goal. I think one year I did set it pretty high. It might have been 2 years ago when I was like first getting back into my leisure reading and setting those yearly goals. I think I set it at, it was either 300 or 350 books.
I know. Calm your titties.
I did make that goal, but it was like by November, I was like, oof, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna hit it. And so after that experiment, I was like, I'm gonna drop it down to what is something that I can attain, and I'm just going to continue enjoying the books that I want to read. So I do make like cute little graphics, and that's what has told me that I have read 22 books. I also keep track of my DNFs because I do like to share what books I did end up not completing, but I don't know. I'm gonna go back and see real quick. I don't know if I had any last month. And I know we are not really like supporting Goodreads, but I do appreciate that they have created a new shelf that is for your DNF, so it does make it a little bit easier to locate those. Oh, okay. I had 3 DNFs in June. Hey now. I will go through some stats. We'll go through the books that I read, and then I will also share the books that I ended up DNFing. So actually, my stats are going to be skewed for this month because I did finally merge my Goodreads and my Storygraph, and there are some that are off, so I'm going to have to go back and redo some of these. So I will just put my overall rating here because I have not calculated it yet. And then I will also share my most read genre. Mostly audio. It says about 56% audio, 35% print, and 9% digital, which is the ebooks. So again, whatever the stats actually turn out to be, I will absolutely put the graphics here. Now on to the fun part. What did I read in June? I don't really do star ratings anymore. I do on Goodreads and Storygraph just to give me a rating of some sort, but most of my ratings are going to be yes, no, maybe. And I will hopefully provide the whys and just like little tidbits because we're gonna be here for a hot minute. So, The Rose Garden. I don't even know who this is by. The Rose Garden by Sasha Payton Smith. I enjoyed this. So I'm not a big fan of The Bachelor. It just, that show and game just doesn't do it for me. And this is very much that. It is a YA fantasy romance. There are some games and trials in this, and it was fun. But at some point I was just kind of like over it. I would recommend this to like the younger YA. There is no explicit intimate scenes, so I do think this would be okay for the younger YA crowd. And then there were some moments where it just kind of read a little bit younger, so I would recommend this, but it was just okay for me. And then I read Wild Highway by Devney Perry. I loved this one. This one made me cry, and because of that, I think I'm just gonna buy it for my shelves. I haven't figured out if I'm going to buy the whole series because I did enjoy book 1, book 2, and I think book 3. Book 4 was okay. It wasn't really my favorite. I think I'll get to it. So this series, The Runaways, follows 5 friends, and how they all came together was they all have traumatic childhood upbringings, and they all end up running away at different times when they are younger, and they all end up at this trailer park. No, not a trailer, a junkyard, I'm sorry. They all end up at this junkyard where they all basically become a found family at a very young age, like in their teenage years. And then they grow up and they leave the junkyard and they all go on their own journeys. Well, there is this red Chevy that one of the girls lived in and was their home for some time. And she starts her journey off in Boston in book 1. She's married, unhappy, and finds her husband cheating on her with the other secretary. And then she is like, I'm done. I'm gonna, close out my savings and I'm gonna go and do what I want to do, essentially. She wanted to take the car to, I think its original owner or someone else who lived in the car with her at the junkyard, but he lives in California. So she is driving from Boston to California. That's the intent. Well, along the way, we have car trouble, we have love interests that pop up in different states. And so each book is almost like passing the baton, and the baton is the car. So it's like each person has their journey in the car to the next portion of the US until the car, I assume, is going to get to its final destination. I haven't read the 5th book yet, so I don't really know how it's going to end. I think I'm going to hopefully try and get it done this month in July. So in Wild Highway book 2, we are in West Virginia. That's where this one starts off, and I believe we get to Kansas. They're all small town romances, so I can't really say like, oh, it's a small town romance. In this one, Gemma, who is the best friend from our female main character in book 1, has this longing to just fit in somewhere and not be tossed aside. And so with her, we do get a lot of like background in her character and where all of this trauma kind of started, and it was with her mother, who was an addict. We have a lot of internal reflection in this story, and then we have the male main character who really just loves on her wholeheartedly and does the most extravagant gesture at the end. And I was just like, this is completely altering my brain chemistry. Like, in that moment, I understood what it meant when people are like, what is a book that completely altered your brain chemistry? This one. And so I'm like reliving the feels all over again. So I absolutely loved this installation, but I would also recommend reading this whole series. I absolutely love Devney Perry's romance writing with the characters and the banter, and she just does small town so good. And then I read This Book Made Me Think of You by Libby Page. For a while I was like loving books about books, and I had saved this, and it was absolutely fantastic. It is very reminiscent of P.S. I Love You, if you have read that, if you have watched that movie. This woman gets married and her husband passes away from an illness. But before he passes away, he knows that she loves reading. And so he goes to their bookstore in town, and he works with the owner and comes up with this project. If these books go out, that means that I did not make it. And so they create this list of 12 books that will be delivered to her every month for the next year. And these books have different meanings or different genres. Like there's a cookbook, there was a fantasy, there's a book about like traveling or just like trying something new. And so I really loved this story, and I was like, the feels all in here. There is like a happily ever after moment where it all just kind of comes together. It's wrapped up in a really pretty bow. I would absolutely. I think I also cried in this one. I'm a Cancer. It does not take much for me to cry from a really good story. So I would also very much recommend this. If you enjoy crying, that's the caveat. Or if you love books about books. Or if you really liked P.S. I Love You. You'll like this one. And then we went to the opposite side of the spectrum and I picked up Jada, which is part of the Dillinger Chronicles by Miss Kimberly Brown. This one did it. I would absolutely recommend this. Jada is, I think, book 4 in the Dillinger series. And this is another urban romance where we have some pew pews and we have older brothers that like don't play about their sister. She is the second youngest. There's 6 of them. So Mia is the youngest, but so Jada is the second youngest. And we have an early 20 something who is really, really tech savvy, and she's still a virgin. And that's okay. That is absolutely okay. But this gets steamy, and I was here for all of it. Quaid, I think was his name. Quaid loved her hard, and not just the love that's like shows. He was patient with her and he was kind with her. He was protective over her. There were so many things about Quaid, and he's also like the tech guy of like his group. So there was just so many fun moments with this story. With this installation of the Dillinger Chronicles. I think I still have 2 more and I'm just kind of waiting on those audios to drop. But yes, these have been very, very fun. I would recommend these if you're needing a nice palette cleanser because they're not overly long, but they're like action packed. You're gonna love the characters, how they interact with each other because they're all siblings, different moms, same dad, but they're all siblings. They all work together in this family business is what we will call it. Each story is a little bit dangerous, it's a little bit smutty, and you're going to have a good time. And then I picked up book 3 of The Runaways, which is Quarter Miles. This one was also very cute. So this one we went from Kansas to Oregon, I think is where she went on this one. And this one is a friends to lovers situation. Catherine is really good friends and actually lives with the male main character who we are introduced to in book 2. He is the brother. And so they're really good friends. They're roommates. They have lived together. I think it's like 5 or 6 years or something like that. And I think it's one of those like tension of like, this is my best friend. If anything were ever to happen, then that like puts a rift in our friendship. So I can absolutely respect that. And Catherine is even like invited to the Friday family dinners. So she is like a part of the family. One weekend, homeboy, I forget his name, invites the girlfriend to dinner, and then that is when Catherine is like, oh, this is way too close to home. I am now like on the outside. I will never be seen as such. I've never been invited to family dinner as a +1. So she is going through this turmoil, and the family sees it, and the mom is like, honey, you need to get out and you just need to explore. Like, go spend some time, find yourself. We will be here, if you want to come back. But this is no good for anybody. And so to send her off, she gives her, and I think it was like maybe like a good luck charm or something, but she gives her a quarter and she's like, heads go left, tails go right. Essentially, just follow the quarter. And that's where we get the title Quarter Miles. But along the journey, homeboy is like, I can't lose her. So he learns about her leaving and he breaks up with the girlfriend and is like, I'm not allowing Catherine to take this car across country by herself. I'm going to make sure she gets home to me. So he goes on this road trip with her, and then they fight and bicker along the way, and it is so funny. There were so many minutes when he was literally like blowing a gasket and I was just laughing. This one was a fun installation, and by the time they get to Oregon, she meets a potential love interest, and then the guys duke it out, and we get a happily ever after every single time. So there's no spoiler there, but how we get there was so much fun. And then I have finally gotten there, y'all. Ooh, I was so proud of myself. Imagine Me by Tahira Mafi. This is a series I have slowly been working through. These books are so much fun, and the covers, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. This series is a YA dystopian. I would say, from what my friend has said, the audio is not good. is not good. I have read all of these physically or on my Kindle. I have even purchased them. Oh, look, it's right here. I have purchased them off Pango because I seem to find the ones that don't have that hideous permanent sticker there. So this is the sixth and final book. Now, I will say this series I think originally started off as maybe a trilogy, and it kind of reads like that a little bit. So it starts off with this, I think she's 16-year-old girl who is locked away in this dungeon prison for all terms of purpose. So she's in this prison by herself, locked away, because if she touches someone, they either get really, really sick, or it's almost like their life force is being sucked out of them, and then they die. And so she is scared to touch anyone, she is scared to come in contact with anyone, and she is essentially being observed as an experiment. And we later find out why, how, who, all of that. So after book 3, the world does expand. We get a lot more characters. I think in between 2 and 3, and then continuing, we get multiple POVs. Within the series, we also have novellas in between each one, and each novella is a different point of view from the book, sorry, that we just read. So I can't remember who 1.5's point of view was. It might have been Adam, I think. And I'm trying to like not say too much, but in book 1 she does meet one of the guards was a childhood friend, so like her memory is completely wiped away, she can't really remember much, and then one of the guards was planted there, and they happen to know each other, and he essentially helps her escape. And then again, I cannot tell you much because it's literally like the books follow back to back to back. They end and then they pick up. So if you are looking for a quick like palate cleanser, these books do read really, really fast. I would recommend this to a younger crowd. It does read YA. You will find yourself, if you're over 20 something, you will find yourself thinking like, why would they do this? Or how are they not caught?
Oh, these kids are at it again.
Like that's very much like what I was going through, but I did enjoy the journey. I did enjoy the mini POVs. You will find when you get there that Kenji is gonna be your favorite. I think that's the overall consensus. But yes, and then so this is the end of, I don't know, we'll call it era 1 and era 2. And now I do know that 2 more books have come out, and I think they follow some more people from here, but I don't think it follows Juliet, that's her name. I don't think it follows Juliet in the original game. I think it's almost like a spin-off. So when they come out in paperback, I will absolutely be picking those up and continuing on with this gang. And then I picked up Blood Over Brighthaven by M.L. Wong. I challenged myself to read this. I sometimes do not give myself enough credit that like, oh, I can read this and I can understand not just what is in front of me, but like the overall big picture. And that is where I put authors like M.L. Wong and R.F. Kuang at. So I came across M.L. Wong with her, I think it might have been a debut, the other, Sword of Kaigen, that's what it is. I also have that one. And that one just blew up. And so I've also heard really, really good things about Blood Over Brighthaven. I would recommend this, but I also think it is overhyped. And I say this because there are touches of magic, but it's like sprinkles. This is almost more of like a future magical realism story. There are lots of moments of colonialism, and there are tidbits of religion. That is probably the biggest thing that I took away from this story overall. So in this world, women are the homemakers. Like that is their place. They don't belong in other professions outside of the home, except raising the kids, low education, doing what the man of the house tells them to do. And then you have the men who work in these really grand professions, I would say. They are the educators. They are, you know, those that work in the health system or the government. And then you have the low class, like the barkeepers, the custodians, almost like the help. And those individuals come from a completely different land. So they are almost like the immigrants of this world. And so besides the class system, from what I really enjoyed reading about this, and her really like digging deep and calling shit out unapologetically. I also enjoyed the conversations about religion. I'm not going to do a very good job explaining this story because there's so many deep, meaningful things that are going, and I think that is kind of what takes some, it's not truly distraction, but it does take some of the focus off like what is happening. So there is this overall picture, and some people are going to zero in on different things as you're reading it. I enjoyed the conversation about religion because it does come into play as far as the main character is told one thing, this is what she grew up with, this is her understanding, this is her faith, this is her intelligence, like this is everything. And then she has a helper that helps her with this overall project, which is what I really thought the story was kind of about. And he is an immigrant and he has a different faith. They butt heads. They are constantly having conversations as far as like, and he's like, ma'am, I understand that this is what you're saying, but you know, who told you that? Where did it come from? It's okay that you and I can believe in two different things. I'm not going to change that. I can't change that, but you cannot be upset at me for having a different belief system. And so then she has her own like moment of clarity where she even, you know, calls him like lower than her because of his beliefs, or because like she feels that his beliefs are less or more barbaric even. And so there is a lot of deep conversations and interactions, and that's really what I clung to with this story. Again, there's a lot happening. I think I probably gave this maybe like a 3.5, just because when I go into a story, or if it's super hyped, it's like, oh, okay. And that's why I try to read books after the hype has gone down. But I've heard such great things about this one. And then, you know, of course, like the writing just kind of made me really nervous.
Like, I'm not smart enough for this.
But those are the kinds of things that I got out of this story. I would recommend you reading it for yourself just to see what you got out of it. So after saying all of that, I am very intrigued on reading Sword of Kaigen. I think that one has more fantastical elements. I think that is like a mother-son story, or a mother-esque story. So I do still plan on reading this one, and I would say try Blood Over Brighthaven if those elements are interesting to you. And then I picked up The Lost by Sarah Beth Durst. Sarah Beth Durst writes, I wouldn't say magical realism because there is quite a bit of magic in her stories, but she writes amazing cozy fantasy. So if that is not your vibe, you might steer clear. Low romance, kissing, the yearning, all of that is there, but it is more on the overall plot of what the stories are. We have, I think, an older teenager, younger 20s, and she essentially has lost something, but what she has lost she doesn't know, and you don't find out until like the story progresses. And this one I'm also not going to do it justice. She gets lost, she wakes up, and she is at this house. She doesn't know how she got there. She doesn't know why she's there. And there's just a lot of really fun, kooky side characters in this one. But the two main characters, and I forget what they're called, like the finder and I don't know, the other guy. And so they both have important roles in this story. And when I think I think it's the finder, when the finder realizes who she is, he just like disappears. But then the other characters are like, you can't leave until the finder comes back. And so while they are all here, she ends up helping all these other characters find the things that they've lost, find their purpose again, and all of those things. So I did enjoy it. And then at the end, you find out more. So I can't even really like say much about this one because you just keep finding more. What I will say is, if you enjoy quirky characters, if you enjoy found family stories that truly transport you to another setting, I would absolutely recommend this story. Then I picked up A Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. This is the first of a trilogy of siblings, I think. And it is set in the Regency era, which I personally am not a big fan of reading I will watch it, but reading just doesn't really excite me. But I have heard fun things about this story. Now, this is a queer story. Our male main character, I believe, is bi. He is the oldest sibling, and his dad is like, "Look, you are about to come of age. You need to grow up. Before you do, like, I refuse to hand over the torch until you grow up." So he sends him out on this adventure in which he comes in contact with other people, other characters, and he learns different things about himself. He learns, and within these learnings, it makes him a better individual overall. I think this was fun. It was fine. I think I had a little bit different expectations because at one point I did have to go to other reviews and I was like, okay, where are we at? Like, what are we doing? I think I really missed the purpose in this one, but it really is just about this young man who has these expectations of his father because of who they are in society. And he does have a little bit of growing up to do. You know, he's one of those, like, the spoon-fed kids. He needs to learn to think on himself. He doesn't, you know, everything that is told to him, he is allowed to have his own thoughts about it and opinions about it. So that is really what this story is. And then I think book 2 follows the sister. And then the third book, from what I saw, there is another sibling that's introduced, maybe in book 2. And then we have Forsaken Trail. So I read three books in this series last month. I was just kicking them out. They are pretty short, so I will say if you want a series that you're just gonna love and you're just gonna, you know, want more, this is a great series to pick up. So Forsaken Trail is book 4. So there's a set of sisters. I don't think they're twins. They might be twins. There's a set of sisters. And that is who book 4 and 5 follow. And so in 4, we start in Oregon and we go down. So there was mentions of Arkansas as well as California. So I don't remember, maybe they bounce back and forth. So I can't quite remember exactly where this one is. This one is not my favorite. I think there was a billionaire. And one of the sisters has a child who is younger. And oh, that's right. Okay, so the sister who ends up driving the car accidentally has a one-night stand with the other sister's boss. That's what it is. And then we have an accidental pregnancy. Not my favorite. Now, for him to be a billionaire, I did actually like him as a character. He has some difficult family issues that he is trying to overcome while still being a kind person. And then you have her who was like, man, that was a one-night stand. I had no children in my future. Like, that's not something I was really planning on or looking forward to right now in this time of my life. And so they kind of maneuver between that space of, you know, we're not really friends. We don't really know each other. I know you are my sister's boss. And I know you just kind of dish out money because you have it out of the kindness of your heart. It's not, you know, to have a one-up on anybody by any means. Then she's like, I can do this by myself. So they do have that, like, tug of war kind of tension throughout the whole story. But I think just overall, it was okay. Sometimes it doesn't always need to be, you know, all heavy. It can be a little light to get us to the next installment. And I think that's really how I read this one. And then I read it's a novella duology. I read Destry by Casey Mills and then Titus by Charity Shanae. And something about a black cowboy, y'all. I think I liked Titus more than Destry. So here's the thing with novellas. With novellas, it is a short story. And so you can really only get so much information, so much detail. These can be nice placeholders, like in between 2 full-length novels. And with Destry, I think what we got, I almost wanted a little bit more. I needed a little bit more character building to get where we were. There was quite a bit going on in Destry for it to be a novella. But then you meet Titus at one of the rodeos. Is that what they're called? And so then the second novella it follows Titus and then his love interest. And I think my review was like simply pleasant. Like, this was wonderful. It wasn't too many details. It was exactly what we needed as a nice, just like, oof, splash water on me. It's refreshing. But baby, Titus did it. Yeah. He came and he did, and he taught, and he encouraged, and then he did the thing. So I enjoyed Titus, and God damn it, you will too. And then I picked up My Husband's Wife by Alice Feeney. I had to put a hold on this one some time ago, and then it finally dropped into my my Libby library. This is one of the few times that I will pick up a hyped book. Now this came out earlier this year. What I kept hearing, I have read Alice Feeney, it was Rock, Paper, Scissors, but I get her and Lucy something mixed up. So I was like, I'm hearing, not Lucy Foley. I'm not hearing good things about these books. Maybe I'll let this one die down some more. But my hold came in and I said, well, why not? What we know at the start of this book is our female main character is running in the woods for exercise. She goes back home, puts the key in, and the key's not working. A woman answers the door and she is like, who are you and why are you in my clothes? And then the husband comes and he was like, hi, who are you? And then she is like, babe, what are you talking about? And then the three of them are like, what the is going on? So so we figure out if we're all like being brainwashed, are we all being gaslit into like, is she at the right house? Like, what is going on? And we kind of find out like how we actually got here. Because it's a thriller, that's probably about as much as I can really give you. Just know, I would highly recommend the audio on this one. It is truly a full production. You hear birds, you hear the wind, you hear the feet running on the trail, like the doors closing. It is a wild story, and I really enjoyed it. There were times when I was driving and I was just like, oh, having those moments and comments to myself. Because I'm like, no, he didn't. But this is a very fun story to read by audio, and you're gonna be questioning some things. You're gonna be mad at some people, but this was fun. This was really, really fun. And then I picked up Whispers of the Deep by Emma Hamm. This is a monster romance. That's about all I can really say. I liked it, but I think I was wanting a little bit more, maybe. My expectation of it was a little bit different though, and that's okay. It's set in like an underwater world, and there are people and then there are sea creatures, which are like the mermaids, except they are a little bit scarier and have like extra gills and horns, and yeah. So the people, the humans, live in this submerged world, I guess, and they are actually doing experiments and all of those things on the underwater realm. And so I forget exactly how the two characters met. It was a little unclear, and then it just kind of like kept going. I think she was out in the ocean collecting specimens, and then something to do with like her breathing concoction, and then he came in, and there was a lot going on in their first interaction. I think this is technically a kidnapping plot, sort of. And so on their second meeting, she goes back out, and somehow she gets stuck somewhere that she probably should not have been, and so he attempts to save her. But then his creature dumb, they're like, the humans are bad, we need to figure out their secrets so we can essentially destroy their underwater home so we can take back our home. Enemies to lovers, kidnapping, those things. So they're both going against each other, but then they end up falling for each other again. So it's sometimes with these monster romances, there's really not, the plot is not that deep, and we're really just here for the smut that happens. And once the smut started, yeah if you catch my drift. And I was like, ooh, wait, because I'm always in the car and I always have my headphones in, and when he said that he's got, and I said,
well, how is that supposed to work?
Look, read it and find out. And then I picked up Letters to Molly, which is the completion of this duology for the Mason Jar. I think it's the Mason Jar duology by Devney Perry again. In the first book, The Birthday List, that's what it's called. That one was actually really, really good. I think I gave that one like a 5-star. This one I would give like a strong 4, just because it is a second chance. And then I forget what they call it. It's like a third act romance. I have to look up on exactly what the third act means, because I feel like it still encapsulates a part of what second chance is. So in this one, we follow the brother from the birthday list, and him and his wife have been divorced for I think about 5 years or so, and they rekindle and then they don't rekindle and they rekindle. In true Devney fashion, something happens to where she agrees to take care of him, and then they keep on rekindling. Now, the twist in this is she starts receiving these letters that he at one point wrote for her, and he had no intention of her ever receiving them. And I believe the first letter, I don't think it was like after their first date. I think the letters might have started like after the divorce is when he started writing, but he saved them, put them in a box, put away, and he had no intentions of ever mailing them out to her. Well, someone located the letters and then starts mailing them, and then you find out later like who actually was the culprit. So I think the overall story was really good. Again, I am not a second chance romance lover. It's over there with like the accidental pregnancy, not my vibe. But the plot and the growth of the characters and the grieving and processing the issue that happened, yes, Devney writes these very, very well. And then I continued with Daughter of the Siren Queen. I read Daughter of the Pirate King, I think last year. And so I just wanted to pick up the next one because I'm really trying to finish some series. That's the goal. And I will hopefully have a series vlog coming. So if you are interested, definitely let me know. This is another series this summer that I'm hoping to finish. I have one more book left in this one. So Daughter of the Siren Queen. I really enjoyed Daughter of the Pirate King last year. This is my first set of books by this author, and she writes really fun, adventurous stories. So far, I've only read 2 books. Really enjoyed the banter. I forget what our main character's name is, but she is a hoot and holler. Like, literally, if you love Captain Jack Sparrow, put him in a female body who is like late teens, and that is literally these 2 books. The third book follows her first lady. I don't really know her right hand. I don't really know what they call them in the pirate world. She is this pirate daughter person who is going on a couple adventures. The first book, I don't quite remember. It's more of like an introduction, and then her dad is like this terrible pirate king of the ocean, and she goes off on her adventures with her crew of women, and that is what I really, really enjoyed. It's really empowering. It's a lot of found family in these stories. And then in the second one, she is half human, half siren. And then she finds out more that like her dad was holding her siren mother hostage all of these years. And so she finds her, and then the story keeps going. So again, I really, really had a good time. It's a perfect summer read for this time of year. And then I finally got The Names by Florence Knapp. I was very intrigued with the premise on this one. A child was born with the potential of 3 names, and each name has its own trajectory. And really, I think the question on this one is like not necessarily the importance of a name, but what I didn't know going into this one, and I should have read the synopsis, is this is heavy on domestic abuse. So I will put that trigger out there. It does say it in the synopsis. So what I will say about this one, I enjoyed how the story was told. The story is told every 7 years, like each chapter is another 7-year jump, and each chapter we do get each name POV, and it kind of just helps progress the story. It really is interesting because it's not necessarily like Power in Your Name, or your name holds a different trajectory of your life, but in the beginning you find out that like how each name kind of comes to be. One name is a name that the mother loved, and I think his name was Bear, and the abusive husband was just like, no one's ever going to take a person seriously if their name is Bear. Like, what kind of name is that? And then the second name is a name that their daughter really, really loved. And I can't remember, but the nickname was like, it was kind of like a feminine nickname, like Jules or something like that. Then there's the third name, which is actually named after the father. And that name is a family name, and it was more of like, you know, he has to have this name, he has to basically follow in the family's footsteps. Even though we are following different trajectories of this named child, there is still on the sidelines this constant domestic abuse and what the mother is going through and how much it is affecting the daughter as well. Overall, I think this was a very interesting read. I did like the trajectory of the story and how it was told. I can understand why some people felt misled as far as like how it was being marketed. It is heavy on the domestic abuse though, so I will say that as a precaution. And I'm continuing my read of The Minders, which I don't actually know. I think it's Dark Future is what the series is called. This is book 3 by John Mars. This one kind of let me down. I was excited for book 1, and then I was excited for book 2, and then this one I was like, so the premise is there are 5 people that are just randomly picked, and they each hold a secret, like top government, section 5, I don't know if that's right, but like the top of the top secret, and you never want to give everyone one secret. So like each person has little bits. This is a multi-POV, and one person you find out later, like, because everyone else has the secret, and then this person's POV is literally like just their name. So like we're following why this one person is important. But the execution on this one kind of flopped. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. You would just think for it to be such a big secret that, you know, we're uprooting people's lives and implanting them elsewhere, and they're supposed to be under this kind of protection, that the secret would kind of be like big. And I don't even remember what it was. So that's like kind of how unengaged I was, maybe. But again, the one and the passengers were extremely thrilling, so I would say read those 2. I do plan on reading the other 2 books of this one, and I will say it's best to read them in order because there are nuggets from previous books. So, and then I have had Ethic and Butterfly, I think is what the series is called, on my TBR list for some time, but I couldn't figure out where you're supposed to start. So I finally picked up Moth to a Flame by Ashley Antoinette. That's all I got. This book was so traumatizing. Like, don't get me wrong, it was good. You're gonna get whiplash if you read it. This is another domestic abuse situation set in the streets. There was many moments where like these characters are gonna frustrate the shit out of you, and then the end, you know? If I still have the clip, I will put it here. But the end completely gutted me. It was one of those where they are gonna get what they have been wanting. This whole story, they're gonna get what they've been wanting. And then not only is the rug pulled out from underneath their feet, but it's like a bomb went off. Yeah. A big bomb. Big bomb. And so that was about a week and a half ago. And I'm terrified to pick up. I think Ethic is the next set of books that you would read. And I'm like terrified. So, and that's been the consensus. Like everyone is like, read Ethic. It doesn't get any better. Okay, well. So that's a series I will slowly read through. Hopefully she does not do heavy cliffhangers because I will be so upset. I have to jump into the next one if there is such cliffhangers, but I am hoping she doesn't do that because these are very heavy and very difficult to binge. So yeah. Sorry, I think I went somewhere with that one. I have Next Time Will Be Our Turn by Jessie Q Sutanto. The first book that I read by her was A for Aunties. I think that's her. And then I happened to just be browsing at the bookstore, and I did not realize that she has such a big backlist, y'all. She writes YA, she writes mystery. I think she's mostly like a mystery writer of different ages. She's got some romance. I am very, very intrigued on her backlist for sure. So this one is A Tale That Spans Time. We have, I forget the exact ethnicity, so I'm not gonna butcher that, but we have insert background. And within this culture, they're very, you know, like man and woman under the same house. Queer love is not truly accepted. And so this is a story that flops back and forth between timelines, between past and present. We have our female main character who is the granddaughter of who is actually involved in this story. And she is kind of figuring out who she is and her love interests and things. And I think the grandmother has this intuition. And so instead of telling her like, hey, go out, be who you are, be your most authentic self, love who you love, she comes into a party. I don't remember what the party was, but she comes into a party with her woman. I don't want to say girlfriend because it's like your grandma. Like, oh, my grandma's got a girlfriend. We're not going to do all that. So she comes in with a woman. And then everyone flips shit. They're like, Grandma, what are you doing? You're an embarrassment. Like, no, no, no. Like this, we are not doing this here. This is not the time or place for this. And so the story is told as the grandmother is telling our main character how she decided to essentially choose herself and choose love and what that means for her. It's probably one of the few ways that I really like a multi-timeline, because it's not really taking place in the present, but the story's being told in the past. And then we have our glimpse, we have our jump back, and it's like, you know, okay, let's reconnect here, but then I'm going to continue on with the story. I really like that. I really, really do. And this actually gives a bit of like Seven Husbands vibes with how the story is being told back and forth. But I really enjoyed this one. It hurt my heart a little bit towards the end. If you read it, you will find out. But it is a wonderful love story that truly like spans time. And one thing that actually like threw me a little bit was, we're not that old, okay? My child likes to ask me,
Mom, were you born in the 1900s?
first of all, it was 1991. Let's chill out a little bit. But this story starts in like 1993. And you wouldn't think that in the 90s that issues with queer love and queer culture were such up in arms. And so it really did kind of like throw my brain a little bit. It's like, oh my gosh, like that wasn't that long ago. That kind of threw my perspective a little bit. Instead of it being so far back in time, it was 30 something years ago. So I found that to be a shocker a little bit, but I really enjoyed this one. I would recommend it 100%. And just be prepared to you know, clutch your heart a little bit. And then I had, I love this one so much, To Catch a Firefly by Emmy Sanders. I instantly need this for my shelves. Yeah, this one made me so giddy while I was reading it. Okay, so this one is a beautiful friends to lovers queer story. And what I loved most about this is we also get some autistic rep. There's no one way to be autistic, right? So I say with that, I love this story, and I do think this person was somewhere on the spectrum. Where? I do not know. These two characters, they met in like high school. One character moves here. I think his name was Lucky. Lucky moves to this town, I think, where were they? Nebraska. He moves to Nebraska with his family. Smaller town, and he's like the only openly gay person at the school. And then we have Ellis. Ellis is a mute by choice, and he is a little bit bigger, you know, probably has like darker features, kind of that kid that sits in the corner by himself. And so the fact that Lucky moving here and it's like, this is my neighbor and I'm this very extroverted person, and I can see that there is something a little different about my neighbor, but I'm gonna like him anyways, right? And so they go to school, they have some moments where, you know, Lucky is being picked on because he is gay, and Ellis actually comes in and he literally handles the bullies for him. They have this beautiful friendship as they get older, but Ellis has never really been able to share his feelings. And then we follow them as they graduate high school, go through college. Ellis stays home, Lucky goes and he travels, and he is a photojournalist, I believe. and he has a partner in which he does his career with, and the partner is even like, all I know about this guy is it's like, it's your Ellis, your Ellis, like that's all he just keeps saying. We get little bits and pieces of Ellis writing Lucky letters, and he is fully transparent. He's able to get all his thoughts and his feelings out, and it is absolutely fantastic. And then I think like the big moment of that just like really warmed my heart was Lucky choosing Ellis. Later in the story, there's a moment when Lucky is like, I think I love this guy. And then Ellis is like, don't leave. But there is a moment where when they are children and Lucky is like, I'm gonna get out of here, like I'm gonna get out of this small town, I'm gonna leave, all of these things. Ellis does refer to Lucky as his firefly, so it's very sweet, like how the title is To Catch a Firefly. It's like they are these roaming insects that are constantly moving and constantly, you know, going outside of their comfort zone, but it's like, how do I catch my firefly? And so when Ellis hears this, he's like, I love this guy, right? But I don't want to hold him back, you know? And so they do go through this long, yearning friendship and growing love for each other. And it was just really, really beautiful to read. It really was. Oh, it warmed my heart so much. And then the epilogue, I know some people are like not epilogue people, but the epilogue, like I didn't think you could top what happened in the story. But within the epilogue, it was just so sweet. And I was like, oh my gosh, like this is how you teach love. This is the right way to do it. You know, you teach acceptance and you teach love no matter what the person went through, what the person's going through, how the person interacts. Like, oh, this is truly a beautiful story of just love and acceptance. If I was going to sell you on anything, love and acceptance, and like this beautiful friends to lovers, like yearning through the times. I loved it so much. And then the last book that, well, plus the DNFs, but the last book that I read, and I actually just finished this, was Rules for Breaking. This is part 2 in the Rules for Disappearing by Ashley Elston. This one follows a family, so it's mom and dad and then 2 little girls, and they are a part of a witness protection program in book 1, and they are moving around because something happened, and I believe it has to do with like the dad's job. He saw maybe a murder, I forget, and so they are constantly moving because they're in witness protection. Well, in Rules for Disappearing, each chapter is actually really fun. Like she goes through like, oh, rules for disappearing, number whatever, and then she gives like this list of like things to not do. And so, you know, things to not do, you know, don't get too comfortable, always have your ready to go bag, you know, memorize your story, never fall for anybody, you know, never have any true relationships, those kinds of things. If it's not something that you can't explain on your feet, then, you know, maybe you just don't do it. So in the follow-up of this duology, I didn't like it as much. I felt like it kind of drawed on, and this is definitely another story where like the teenagers insert themselves into the mystery of it. That's not always my favorite if it's not executed well. I enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, but this one I think was a bit too far-fetched for me. So in this one, I thought it was really fun how the author took those same chapters, and I didn't catch it until I was like halfway through. I was like, oh! So this one, she took those same chapters, told you the chapter, but then was like, scratch that, and she did like her own redaction to her previous rule, and how those are like getting her through whatever adventure it is they are in right now. So for those moments, I thought that was pretty cute. I do think this could have done well as just a standalone and maybe wrapped it up a little bit different in the first one, but to just finish the duology, I went ahead and I read it. Now, real quick, the DNFs. And I won't spend too much time on these because I DNF'd it for a reason. And here's the thing with my DNFs, if it may not be free for me, it could still be for you. So I do still encourage everyone to read them or give it a shot if it is up your alley. So Sadly, the first one that I DNF'd was the Jasmine Throne. This was previously a soft DNF. I think I got a little bit farther this time. I DNF'd it about 21%. This one was marketed as an epic fantasy with a female love story. And I believe it's like an enemies to lovers. The issue for me was there was a bit too much politics happening and less action, because I realized that there was another point of view and I didn't process that. So it was more heavy on the politics and less on truly the relationship between the two characters. So I was very just like not really enjoying it. So I just cut my losses. I do know this is a well-beloved trilogy though. So again, if that sounds interesting to you, it's definitely more political than I prefer my romanices. Blood and Betrayals. Ooh, child. This one was long. It's a long story. So I DNF this one around 34%. I don't do insta-love well. This is definitely in the new adult age range. There's a lot of smut. A lot of smut. It takes place at an academy. I did really like the fantastical creatures between the fae and the vampires and other creatures and just like the magical system. I was very intrigued on that, but we didn't get much. Literally, okay, we get to the school. Oh, he's hot. I'm gonna jump his bones. Oh, I'm here, but no one knows why I'm here. I'm special. I'm a special fae, but no one knows why I'm special. We don't know why she's special. Oh, but I'm gonna jump his bones over there too. Oh, let's go to a party with my roommate. I'm gonna jump his bones here in the corner. Can we stop? Like, can we get some plot? Like, can we actually figure out like why you're important? I don't know. So I know a lot of people really like this one. It just did not bode well for me, and I really thought I was the only one. I found someone else who felt the exact same way. So I felt validated and I decided to choose me and not this book. So if you would like, go ahead. And then I picked up These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. What I've heard about this author's stories is they are very atmospheric. And I think I was just trying to get out of a fog that I was in. So I picked it up as truly like a genre jump. And it just did not do it for me. This was a haunted house that has some sort of ties with this family. And all of the family members are kind of estranged, and then we have our female main character and her mom, and the rule is, I think, for whatever curse to be broken, you have to like stay in this house for a year and then you get a prize. I don't know. The mom was very upset about it. She was like, no, you cannot put this on her. This is outside of like her, what is the son doing? This is outside of like her responsibility. She's too young to agree to any of this. So I DNF'd this at about 68%. I gave this much longer than I normally would. I normally DNF between the 30 and 40%. I thought we were really going somewhere. It was like we got a little bit that pulled me in, and then it lulled, and then we got a little bit more, and then it lulled again. I truly just was like, I actually don't care about what's going on. So anywho, so those are the books that I read. Those are the books I DNF'd on. I hope you enjoyed this vlog. If you stayed for its entirety, drop me an emoji for To Catch a Firefly, whether they have a bug, a moon, a star, something that's like cute and evening firefly-esque. And I will see you next time. Happy reading.